So this week I've been just kind of obsessed with the Akai Force. I've been using the Complete Control S61 as my note entry keyboard, and then using the pads on here for drums. I've been making songs similar to the jam I made last week. And the thing that just keeps coming to my mind is that I just can't believe I almost sold the Akai Force. The more I use it and the more I dive into it, the more I start to understand what the fan base has understood. I have a lot of commenters and viewers who really appreciate the Akai Force. And when I did my review a few weeks ago, I was kind of coming from the perspective of just someone who hadn't used it enough, who didn't see the value in it. But since I've really been diving into this thing, I really am starting to see what people love about it. Obviously, the Ableton-like interface is really great, and it's a really good starting point for someone who is used to the push and to the launch pads. But it goes way beyond that. Like the MPC Live 2 and the Machine Plus and the Polyend Tracker and basically any piece of gear that is standalone, there's just this immediacy and this magic to having all of that power and all of that control in one device and not needing to plug into a computer or incorporate other devices if you don't want to. So the big thing I've been focusing on this week is sound design and just really messing with the internal plugins and effects. I do think one of the big weaknesses of the Akai Force, and to a degree also the MPC Live line, or the MPCs in general, is that the stock presets for a lot of the synths don't sound very good. Pink Buddha has a really good video about this where basically they all seem to have this weird delay configuration or reverb configuration. Just something about how the effects are actually put together on these devices kind of makes them sound cheap or cheesy. But my commenters keep pointing out that the actual engines themselves are very capable. And so I spent a lot of this week just messing around with my keyboard and creating synth sounds from scratch. This is one I made earlier in the week. And not only did I go through all these different sections within the Hype interface, but I was also able to add effects on top of this and send to reverb. So there's actually quite a bit of potent flexibility here. One of my commenters last week pointed out you can hold an effect in the mixer view to turn it off, which is really cool. So now this is what the patch sounded like with none of the effects on it. And I made this using the analog init in Hype. Then I added tube drive, diode clip, which is a great plugin that I kind of overuse sometimes. Added a filter. And multi-chorus. And, I think it still sounds a little bit hollow. I probably should have used the tube synth rather than the Hype synth to make this analog patch, since the tube synth really lends itself to analog sounds, whereas Hype is kind of more, a Swiss Army knife tool. But I ended up making something I'm pretty happy with. Almost everything else here, I believe, is just presets or audio or just, plugins that already were created. Let's see. Yep, this is one I used. And it actually has that delay I was talking about. It sounds a little goofy, but it works in the mix. This one's 80s Bells, which is another Hype synth, and I think this one sounds really good. And then I actually took extensive use of the vocal processing and used vocal tuner, vocal doubler, a parametric EQ, and vocal harmonizer for track 4, which sounds like this. I'm here, alone, and it feels like home. No, but it feels like home. Waking up, I just can't find, so I won't say it anymore. That's so cool, but I can't find. You say again, try to hide, say it's mine.
boyfriends, I'm here alone, and it feels like home. I don't know, but it feels like home.
And this workflow, similar to Ableton, just makes it really easy to build out a track and kind of create variations. And, you know, this is still early days. I'm still not using every single element of this machine, but making tracks like this, you know, one of my viewers and commenters, Tips and Tricks, who's been around, you know, watching my videos and commenting for years. One, thank you so much for doing that. And two, one of the things she talks about is making like 30 songs before you ever sell a piece of gear. And I don't tend to make finished tracks that same way on each of my pieces of gear, but he's totally right that the more you try to make things, the more you'll understand the inner workings of a device. And so that's kind of what I've been doing this week is one, just making songs to have fun and potentially for them to end up on my next album. And two, you know, just exploring and learning the device. Speaking of albums, I have an album out called There's Something Better. It's streaming on all the platforms. I have it linked to Spotify below. If you would check that out, there's another Dylan Paris out there, probably a nice guy, but I really want to get my listens higher than him and make sure I can, you know, keep my name. So consider checking out my album if you're interested in hearing the kind of music I make when I have a lot more time than just what I do on these videos. Okay, so I also made another song. I did make a bass line, but it sounds really bad. Okay, so most of these were actually plugins and then just adding additional effects in the mixer. I'm actually kind of excited about this track too.
Wait and watch, said it all again, no cries. I run away, trying to just pretend I'm okay. When the morning comes I breathe, I don't know what I need, but I just can't believe. And I think I've been deceived, but I don't want to see what it means. Say again, fire apart, dreaming, darling, I'm in the dark, screaming, don't go away.
And yes, again, I'm really trying to like build in dynamic songwriting, you know, chill verse, really intense chorus. And with this one, I did actually finally start to use automation on some of the effects. So there's a filter on this. There's a filter that's kind of being automated on this vocal chop, and this vocal chop was actually pretty cool. Okay, I guess I don't know an easy way to show you what it originally sounded like, but it was tuned way down. This is the original. It's similar to the, you know, just the vocal tone of the verse and the chorus. And then I pitched it up a lot. And then I added a few effects, I believe. Let's see, yeah, but actually a bunch. EQ, delay, diode, clip, and filter. And these two songs are really where I started to figure out how to use the sends, which is great because then you're saving some resources by not having every track have a reverb, but you also save one of the effect slots by using the sends instead of adding reverb. And there are actually 4 return tracks, which I've only been really messing with the first one. And what's cool is you can choose what's on the returns. So, I mean, this isn't anything new to like most producers, but it is a cool feature to have and something I wasn't really utilizing. This makes it possible to stack even more than just 4 effects per track because you can actually send to different returns and each return can have 4 effects, which I haven't even come close to using. But that also just gives you so much more flexibility. But yeah, this is another track that I'm just kind of excited about. And it's still early days. Originally, I was going to maybe make a video just about 1 or 2 of these songs. But instead, I just wanted to show you what I've been working on and why I'm so inspired by this thing. Lastly, I'll show you some instruments or preset sounds I made myself. So let's just go to a new project and don't save what we changed here. And I'll load up the 2 presets I made last night. I've been trying to kind of teach myself more sound design, and this has been a really cool way to do it. Okay, so presets. Hazy Baby was the first one I made. This one is, I want to say hype. No, this one is actually electric. Turn that up a little bit. And I feel like this one's just really pretty, and I made it fully from scratch. I loaded an init patch on electric, went through this entire thing, adjusting different parameters and getting a sense of the sound, and then I added lo-fi and granulator. And enhancer. This is what it sounds like without any of the effects. Just going to turn them off really quick. And that's already a nice patch. Like, I was already proud of what I made. Add lo-fi. Not amazing. Add granulator though. And granulator is actually a preset called Beautiful Octave that I then change some of the parameters on. And then enhancer just let me boost certain frequencies. So there's a little bit of high gain and low gain. So that one was pretty cool. And then I did one more. This was Heavenly Bells. If we go to edit, I use the sampler plus sampler init. And so we've got a string patch for octave 1, or oscillator 1, sorry, and a light bells for oscillator 2. I messed with some of the parameters, the formant, the wave start. And one of the big things I did was Ricky Tinez had this video about not just having your sustain go forever on your patches. So this starts, and then the sustain is only 11 on the amp. And so that's what's being modulated by that stutter and the frequency shift. And this one really reminds me of the Wave State, which is a synth I used to own and really loved, and I don't know why I sold it. It was right before I started keeping gear. But there is just power in here. Now, it's not quite as extensive as the Wave State, but there's clearly a lot you can do here. I do kind of want more. I want like more flexibility with hype. I want to be able to go deeper into it. I want to maybe be able to switch the samples it's using and actually have a little bit more LFO control. But even still, there's a lot you can do here, and it really speaks to, you know, this is a powerful tool. It just needs better presets, I think, and that's where people have already done some great work. I've talked about this before, but there's some OPZ expansions that are key groups that a guy named Bolt did, and those are awesome and free, I think. I think I paid for them, but I think they're free. And then Dunked from Child of the Corn Dog is mostly... is primarily, also presets created using the synths and internal engines. And so there's a lot that can be done here, and there's probably more I need to dive into as far as seeing what other people have made and making stuff myself. I still really do want OPX4 at least to come over here, and Fabric XL. I feel like having those two on here would be really cool. I'm at a point where if they did actually make them cross-compatible between the MPC and the Force, I would consider paying $500, which is embarrassing, but I would think about it. Because it would be cool to have that additional sonic capability, because I am really just starting to fall in love with this whole setup, and I haven't even really scratched the surface still. but it's just finally unfolding in a way I really understand. And so if you're interested in seeing more videos about the Force, let me know. I'm also going to be making more videos about Machine and Machine Plus soon, as there's some cool new expansions and stuff like that coming out. Thank you so much for watching this, and thank you so much if you're already a subscriber. If you're not, consider subscribing. It helps my channel grow, and I would really appreciate hearing how you're using the Force, or maybe what you'd like to see me do with the Force in the comments below. Thank you so much to my Patreon patrons. The fact that people are giving me money to help me make these videos means so much to me. It's still a really small operation. I still definitely spend more per month than I make from this, for sure, but it is really awesome to see that community grow and to see, my subscriber count grow, and it just means a lot that you're watching. So thank you again, and I hope you have an awesome week ahead. I'll see you soon. All right, bye.